For as long as I can remember, I've always been the strong one, the one who couldn't get sick, who didn't have the right to get tired, the one who worked overtime, who paid for food, bills, her nephew's uniforms, and last-minute emergencies. I was 20 when I got my first real job, and from then on, I never stopped. One job after another, sometimes two at the same time. While my siblings were making excuses, I was filling the fridge. While my parents were growing old without any planning, I was saving to cover their medications. I never complained, not because it didn't hurt, but because I convinced myself it was my role, that it was the right thing to do. Life left me no other choice, and when you have to survive, you get used to doing it without applause. Sometimes others would tell me, "You're so responsible," as if it were a compliment. But behind that phrase lay a trap. You can do anything, so you'll do it alone. Little by little, that responsibility turned into punishment, because the more I gave, the less they valued it. I paid for studies that weren't mine. I lent money that was never returned. I took care of people who never asked me how I was. And yet, they told me I was difficult, that I lacked joy, that I was too serious. If this story is resonating with you, comment below where you're watching from and what time it is there. They didn't know that behind that seriousness, there was a woman broken inside, supporting everyone but herself. Over time, I ceased to exist for myself. My days were a relentless routine. Work, bills, errands, favors. There was always someone who needed something. There was always an emergency that couldn't wait. And I was always available. I became the kind of person everyone takes for granted. The one who solves problems. The one who doesn't complain. The one who, even though she's falling apart inside, smiles on the outside so as not to make anyone uncomfortable. But inside, something was beginning to die. I had no room for my dreams, for my rest, for my peace. I remember once, after an exhausting week, I sat in the kitchen with a hot cup of tea. I just wanted 5 minutes of silence. Then my sister came running in, yelling that her car had broken down and she needed a ride to work. No, hello, no, how are you? And just an order disguised as a need. I turned off my tea. I stood up. I took her. And all the way I thought, at what point did I stop being a person and become a service? I started noticing small things that previously went unnoticed. Nobody thanked me. Nobody remembered my birthday. Nobody asked if I had money before asking me for more. And the worst part of all, when I finally needed something, everyone was busy. I felt invisible, as if it only existed when someone else needed something. As if my presence had no value if it was not accompanied by sacrifice. And the most painful thing was realizing that I had helped build that system. I allowed it. Out of love, out of loyalty, out of fear of not being loved if I wasn't useful. But every day, that version of myself became more blurred, and I was beginning to get lost in the shadow of who everyone expected me to be. At first, it was just exhaustion. My legs ached after work, my back from standing for so many hours, my head from carrying so many other people's worries. I slept little, I ate poorly, but I kept going, because there was no other choice. Until one day I realized that tiredness no longer lived only in the body. It had settled in the soul. It was a kind of fatigue that couldn't be cured by sleep, vacations, or a hot cup of coffee. It was an invisible but constant weight that followed me everywhere. There were mornings when I would open my eyes and wonder, so that, and I had no answer. It wasn't depression. It was chronic disappointment. A disappointment that came from looking around and seeing that despite everything I did, no one saw my effort. No one valued it. No one reciprocated. My parents only knew how to ask me for more. My brothers only spoke to me when they needed something. My friends had gotten used to me being the one who listens, the one who advises, the one who solves problems, but nobody asked how I felt. One day, I went to the doctor because I had chest pain. They ran tests. It wasn't my heart. It's accumulated stress, the doctor told me. You have to stop. To stop? And who was going to do everything if I stopped? I laughed, bitterly, because I knew that if I disappeared one day, everything would fall apart. And not out of love, but out of necessity. Because they needed me, but they didn't love me. That was the truth that hurt the most. She wasn't indispensable because she was loved. It was essential because it made their lives easier. And when a woman realizes that, something inside her begins to break irreversibly. It didn't happen overnight. It was slow, silent, like everything that rots without anyone noticing. Short phrases, small gestures, all wrapped up in sarcasm, in supposed jokes, in, "That's just how we are in this family." Once at a family meal, one of my brothers said, "Well, at least you have money. You don't have children, you don't have a husband. What else are you going to spend it on?" Everyone laughed. Me too. But inside, I felt like a caricature of myself, the single woman who pays, the tireless worker, the one who has more than enough because she doesn't have a real life. Again, my mother asked me why I was still alone. With everything you do for us, some man should have valued you by now. As if the sole purpose of my effort was to be rewarded with company. As if my loneliness were my punishment for giving too much. And don't even get me started on birthdays. For a year, nobody called me. Nobody. Not a single call. The family WhatsApp group didn't even mention it. But the week before, everyone had asked me for money for one of the children's parties, and I'd given it away without thinking. That's when I understood that my role wasn't that of a daughter, sister, or aunt. It was the role of silent provider, the one who shouldn't expect anything, the one who shouldn't ask, the one who is always there, so that others don't have to be. And the saddest thing of all is that, at some point, I accepted that role. I convinced myself that I didn't deserve more, that love was earned by giving until you were empty. But one day, there was nothing left to give. And that's when the masks began to fall. It was a Sunday. I was at home, my head heavy and my body aching from an exhausting week. I'd worked overtime, paid 2 of my parents' overdue bills, and bought school supplies for one of my nephews. All in silence. As usual, that day I decided not to go out. I made myself a coffee, opened a book, lay down on the sofa, and, for the first time in weeks, I breathed. Then the phone rang. She was my sister. His tone was dry, like someone who already takes it for granted that he will get what he asks for. "Hey, I'm out of money for groceries. Can you make me a quick transfer?" Not a greeting, not a question. An order wrapped in necessity. I took a breath, and I said, "I can't today." Silence. "What do you mean you can't? Are you okay?" "Yes, but I need to use that money. For myself." I heard the pause. That exact second where someone decides whether they're going to be humane or hurtful. She chose the second option. Wow, how selfish. Just when we need you. I thought family was your priority. He hung up without waiting for a response. I stared at my phone, my heart pounding, not out of guilt, but out of fear. He had said no, for the first time. And what came next was even worse. Passive-aggressive messages in the family group. Silences that weighed more than words. My mother called to say she was disappointed. My brothers ignoring my greetings. He had broken the unwritten rule. She who gives has no right to stop. But I had stopped, because I couldn't take it anymore. And although that no left me alone for a few days, it also gave me a peace I hadn't felt for years. For the first time, I had chosen to protect myself, and that decision began to change everything. After that, no, the silence became deafening. The phone stopped ringing. Nobody asked me for favors. Nobody was asking about me. And the most ironic thing was that for a while I felt relieved. But then, the truth came out. One afternoon, I saw a photo on social media of everyone gathered together. A dinner at my mother's house. My siblings, my nephews, even a couple of family friends. Everyone was smiling. I wasn't invited, not even mentioned. It was as if I had never existed. That image pierced me like a knife. Not because of the event itself, but because of what it symbolized. Without my money, without my favors, without my availability, I didn't matter. I sat on the edge of the bed and cried. Not sadness, but understanding. For years, they made me believe that I belonged, that I was loved, needed, important. But in reality, she was only valuable while she was solving problems, while she was holding things together, while I was keeping quiet. And as soon as I stopped doing it, I was discarded. I realized that what they called family love was not love. It was convenience. And the worst kind of loneliness is not being alone. It's realizing that, surrounded by people, you were never truly seen. It hurt to accept that I was never a priority for them, that his "I love yous" were conditional on what I could give. But it was also the first step towards freeing myself, because I understood that I am not worth what I offer. I am valuable because of who I am. And if that's not enough for those who say they love me, then they're not my home. I didn't make a scene. I didn't send long messages or explain my pain. I no longer felt the need to justify my absence. I simply left. I muted the groups. I stopped answering calls. I closed the door to my inner world, to those who only knew how to enter when they needed something. I left quietly, but inside, I was burning. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. The clarity of understanding that I didn't have to prove anything anymore. That I no longer needed to pay with sacrifices for a place at a table that only welcomed me with demands. I started doing small things that I had put off for years. I bought flowers for myself. I went out alone for a coffee and read an entire book without interruption. I changed the old sheets for ones that made me feel at home. It was my way of reclaiming space. Not physical, emotional. For the first time, I felt that everything I did was for myself. And that gesture, though small, had a taste of victory. But it wasn't easy. There were nights when the loneliness hurt. Days when I wanted to send a message just to find out if someone missed me. But I stopped. Not because she was proud, but because I understood that going back meant surrendering again. And she didn't want to be used again. My heart deserved rest. My soul deserved respect. And if finding him meant walking alone for a while, she was willing. Because sometimes, leaving in silence is the loudest cry you can make. Today, I walk with a different posture. Not because life has become easier, nor because what happened no longer hurts, but because finally, I belong to myself. I don't live for others. I don't define myself by how many bills I pay, or by how many problems I solve. I live for myself. There are days when the past hits me hard, when I hear a song, when I see a large table in a restaurant, when someone mentions the word family casually, but I don't break anymore. Now I look at myself with compassion, because I know everything I gave, everything I endured, everything I kept silent about. And yet here I am, strong, freer than ever, scarred, but whole. Today, if someone asks me when my life changed, I would say it was when I understood that true love doesn't ask you to erase yourself. The one who values you, takes care of you even when you can't give anything. And that I deserve a life where I don't have to prove my worth with paid bills. I deserve an I love you that doesn't come with conditions. I deserve to be heard, vista, chosen, even when I'm not useful. So if you're watching this and you've ever felt that you were only wanted when you gave, when you were available, when you were strong, I'm telling you this from the bottom of my heart. You have the right to stop, to say no, to choose you, because your life shouldn't be built on the scraps others leave behind, but on what you choose to give yourself. And once you figure that out, no one will ever use you again, and no one will ever silence you again. For years, I believed that if I gave more, I would be loved more. If I kept quiet, if I solved problems, if I was available, then one day someone would see my effort and hug me for everything I carried. But that day never came, because when you get used to giving without limits, others get used to receiving without gratitude. And that's where you get lost. Today I understand that love is not measured in sacrifices, that I don't have to pay with my tiredness to be valued, that real love doesn't use you, it sees you, it cares for you, it asks if you're okay, even when you don't need anything. To all the women who are watching this, who feel that the world demands so much of them without offering anything in return, I tell you, you were not born to be everyone's support while no one supports you. They weren't born to be strong all the time. They have the right to stop, feel it, to ask, and above all, to receive. Because love begins when you stop begging for crumbs and start giving yourself what you always expected from others. And once you do it, I promise you'll never be the same again.